the Kavanaugh hearing with all of those accusations that kind of came out of left field.
Hostile, I know what you mean by that, but I think it's not just hostility. It's by any means necessary. The ends justify the means.
All right, welcome back to the LOOPcast, Catholic Vote's weekly rundown of all things faith, culture, and politics. And this week, we decided it's time to talk the Supreme Court. So if you've read Axios, if you've read New York Times, they are suggesting the Supreme Court is the wild, wild west. There's no ethics. Thomas is going on yachts with the homies. Gorsuch is just chilling around real estate behind backs. Roberts' wife is placing people unethically in employment. It seems as though there's no ethics on the Supreme Court. It's a wild west. It's a terrible situation, and Congress needs to come to the rescue and implement some form of ethics. Erica, is this the full truth? Was the media being honest with me?
It's hard to say that with a straight face. I mean, obviously, Congress is a paragon of virtue. So obviously, all these philosopher kings in the Senate are going to make sure our Supreme Court is going to be tip-top with the best of ethics.
Right. I mean, so
I just believe what I read on the internet.
That's good, Tom,
So,
because it gives us something to talk about on the LOOPcast.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, philosopher king Senator Dick Durbin called the Supreme Court to a hearing. This hearing was based on, there's a bill that another philosopher king, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, introduced called the Supreme Court Ethics Recusal and Transparency Act of 2023. And of course, the bill is, calling for a code of conducts from the justices that would be available for public comment. They want the Supreme Court to establish judicial investigation panels composed of judges from the Fifth Circuit Court who could oversee the Supreme Court. And of course, the implication here, as you said, Tom, is that this is all coming about because of the court's own fault. They have no rules. One of the panelists said, the Supreme Court acknowledges no rule of law. The reality is, though, and Chief Justice Roberts addressed this in his letter to Dick Durbin, declining to appear before the hearing, saying, yes, we do have a statement of ethics. He attached it to the letter for anyone who wants to read it. It is signed by all 9 justices, and that letter addresses issues such as disclosures and recusals and, even security at the Supreme Court, which is another topic that Dick Durbin doesn't seem to want to acknowledge.
Wait, are you suggesting that Axios lied to me and said that there are no ethics?
I'm suggesting that Axios is really good at using euphemisms and reporting certain facts and avoiding other facts. So the picture that you get from them might be a little, shall we say, warped and biased, possibly.
So the truth is ethics do exist on the Supreme Court, right? There is something that binds themselves together to act to a certain standard of ethics.
Exactly. And so there are ethics in the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas is not riding in on his bucking bronco every morning like, oh, what can I do today to leverage my influence? That is not what's happening here. And, watching the Senate hearing this week, it's just a study in dramatics.
Here's the reason why the Democrats are doing this hearing, though, is that, the Democrats loved the Supreme Court for so many decades because it got rid of prayer in public schools. It got rid of every pro-life law across the country. It imposed gay marriage on the entire country. It did so many things to promote the liberal agenda. And then since 2018, since the court has flipped to being actually kind of conservative, the left has lost their mind. And you hear AOC and Chris Murphy complaining about how he's the senator from Connecticut, how, oh my gosh, now the Supreme Court is this legislative body. It's trying to pass all these laws and act like it's Congress. It's like, hello, conservatives have been complaining about that for 40, 50 years, how the U.S. Supreme Court basically decides, hey, we get to decide what's the Constitution, not like, as the founders intended, each of the 3 branches have a constitutional obligation. But the Supreme Court's like, no. We are a 9-person permanent constitutional convention. We get to decide what's constitutional or not. And it's totally not what the founders intended. But what's going on with this hearing? Why are they doing this? That's why I think Judge Rob, I think it makes sense that lawmakers would want to make sure what's going on in the third branch of government. It makes sense. You want to know what's going on. But Chief Justice John Roberts sees this as the sham that it is, because in the mainstream press, they've been attacking Clarence Thomas, they've been attacking Kavanaugh, they've been attacking himself, John Roberts, they've been attacking John Roberts' wife, all these corruption stories, but none of the stories on the three lefties on the court. Oh, gosh, it's kind of funny, huh? Why are they pushing this? I think they're pushing it for several reasons. Number one, a lot of liberals are upset right now because they haven't got anybody confirmed to the federal bench in several months. That's because they're one senator short. Senator Feinstein from California, she's usually on the Senate Judiciary Committee, but she's been sick and she's, unhealthy. And so she's in San Francisco, and they're like, why don't you just resign? And we could put another liberal in there, and we can confirm all these judges like a, conveyor belt. Boom, 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 boom. So they're frustrated with that. So the lefties have to say, we got to show we're tough on the courts and rail against these conservatives. So they got to make their base happy. It's placating the base. But it's also to continue the several-year campaign. Now that the court is slightly conservative, they've got to attack it. Last year, they were attacking the court because they were trying to convince them you don't want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And so as the Dobbs case was going on, they were just attacking. So there's that element. There's two big cases before the court this year. One is, of course, as we know, a lot of Catholics know, that abortion pill case. And so they're trying to do that same intimidation campaign. Hey, you're totally corrupt. You better vote our way. If John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, and Sam Alito magically decided, hey, sorry, we're not going to do this abortion pill stuff, we concede, then suddenly the left would be like, oh my gosh, there's no concern of corruption. These guys are wonderful. They do everything we want. It's obvious that why they're ringing the bell on this, because they're trying to intimidate them. That's the one big case. The second big case is this Chevron case, okay? So people might go, what are you talking about? The gas station? What are you talking about? So there was this court case in 1984 where the law was a little bit vague. And so the bureaucracy is like, well, we'll just kind of fill in the blanks, and we'll tell this company that they got to abide by this regulation. And the corporation's like, well, wait a minute now. That's not what the law says. You just kind of made that rule up to go along with it. And the Supreme Court back then, which was very liberal, said, we're going to give deferences to these federal agencies because Congress was kind of vague and wasn't really sure what their intentions was. And the problem with that then is, for the last 30-some years, we've had just almost 40 years now, the federal bureaucracy has just gone to the mat. They've gone all 9 yards. They just say, fill in the blanks everywhere, and so and it's not done by Congress anymore. To give like a practical example, Congress never abolished the light bulb, the regular incandescent light bulb. That was done by a federal bureaucracy. They just said, we're going to do it like this. And the federal bureaucracy decided, hey, we're going to force Americans to buy low flush toilets. All these things were just done by the bureaucracy. No one voted on it. You can't go to your senator or member of Congress like, why did you do that? Like, I didn't do it. It was the EPA or whatever. And politicians love that. They don't get any blame for it. Like, they've passed the buck.
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy's literally running on abolishing all of those agencies. That is his campaign promise.
So there's a court case going for the court says you've got, it's gotten too widespread on that. The federal bureaucracies just have carte blanche to fill in the blanks however they want to. We need to get closer to what actually the statute is. And here's the thing, because the court gave that green light to the bureaucracies 40 years ago, liberals in Congress know they can pass all these sort of vague laws they want to, because the bureaucracy, 99% of the bureaucrats in Washington want more government power,
right,
want more government regulations.
They'll still get what they want. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had this debate, national debate, Obamacare 2010, 2009 or whatever, and they're saying, well, we want to include a provision on reproductive health. And Catholics were like, whoa, wait a minute. This sounds like a Trojan horse for you guys to come in and force us all to provide contraception, sterilization, and abortion pills in our health plans. And the left, the Catholic left especially, they're like, oh, what are you talking about? We never said that.
It's just universal health care.
It's just a part of health. Yeah, we get reproduction is part of health. We're not going to do that. No, there's nothing about abortion in this bill. And it was all baloney, and we all knew it. And the bishops were strong about this too. They're like, this is a Trojan horse. This is bad news. So they were all lined up against it too. It didn't matter. the left supported it, the Catholic left supported it, the liberals in Congress passed it, and what happened like 3 months later? Boom, they dropped the hammer, and we're in this 10-year fight on contraception mandate, the abortion pill mandate, sterilization mandate. So again, this Chevron case is huge. So the court now is revisiting this, and we might actually return to an era where that bureaucracies don't have unlimited power anymore. They actually have to stay with the text of the law. It'd be refreshing.
It would be refreshing. And I think like some of the hypocrisy that's going on, and I know we've talked about how just pointing out hypocrisy is not enough, but I still have to point out that senators like Dick Durbin and the Democrats who are on this committee, they had no problem with the court legislating from the bench or exerting a judicial overreach when it was a decision like Obergefell. They had no problem with a decision like Casey v. Planned Parenthood. They had no problem with it back then, and all these guys are old enough, they were there when that happened. But now that the court is not ruling in their favor because we are a country, and you've said this, Josh, because we are a country governed by bureaucracy and a court, a permanent constitutional convention that's like, I need a new T-shirt or something that says that, because that was awesome. Because this is the way we're governed, now they're yelling. And the way that they're yelling is they're challenging the integrity of these justices, and they're even calling, as in the FDA abortion pill case, some of our senators and congressmen are calling to ignore rulings from this court. And they're saying, well, these guys are corrupt anyway. We're just not going to listen to them. And it's really insidious.
That poses a question, too. I think that, and to my memory, it starts with Bork and the Thomas hearing, where it just, everything became so hostile. And then you continue that on to the Kavanaugh hearing with all of those accusations that kind of came out of left field.
Hostile,
just destroying.
I know what you mean by that, but I think it's, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I just feel like it's almost better to understand it's not just hostility. It's by any means necessary. The ends justify the means. So they're willing to assassinate the character of Robert Bork and Clarence Thomas if it meant getting him off the court. Now, it worked for Robert Bork. They got him off the court, and we ended up with this guy, Anthony Kennedy, who was horrible. And thankfully, Clarence Thomas did not buckle, and the Senate at that time confirmed him. But yeah, it is an absolute power principle. Like, they will jettison any other principle they hold or claim to hold so long as they maintain power.
Right. And so to continue on, I mean, you mentioned Feinstein. She gave us one of the best bars ever, which is the dogma lives loudly inside of you during the judicial confirmation hearing for Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you so much. That was the gift that keeps on giving. And now she can't confirm people. Oh, man. I mean, that went everywhere. I heard that everywhere. So that happens. We're now getting assassination attempts on Kavanaugh, as we kind of brought up. That
was last year, right? Yeah, it was horrible.
Last year,
right?
And there's arguments over, whether or not security should be provided. I know there's some marshals, but there's a lot of protests outside the home of these justices. It doesn't seem like it always was. I know I'm younger, but it doesn't seem like it always was this hostile relationship. I know you said it's more than that, but like you said, is it just kind of an acknowledgement from one side that we now understand where the power lies? The power lies in the Supreme Court. Maybe it wasn't always that way, but this is what it is now, and so we need to attack that.
This is a new thing the last year or two where they've been protesting outside a person's home. And the left says, well, it's free speech. I can be on the sidewalk. I can do whatever I want. Actually, no, it is against the law to go outside of the judge's home and stir up a protest and scream and holler. And just because you love abortion doesn't mean you get to do that. The fact is, there's a principle behind that law, because the idea is what if it's a corporation, they're trying to win a big court case and they've got billions of dollars on the line? Let's just gin up a bunch of protests and intimidate judges outside their homes. No, we understand that would be corrupt. That would be wrong. That would be horrible. But the left says, oh, no, see, we love abortion, therefore we can do it. And that's what actually Justice Scalia was so good about this. Like, whenever there was a debate before the court on abortion, when he was there, he was that great justice who was there from 80s and 90s and 2000s. He would always say, the left has its principles, but then when it came to abortion, it was this magic principle where it was abortion über alles, where it would, over everything else. abortion trumped every other possible principle. And we must have a legal abortion. That was the left. And Scalia called him out for it. It goes, that, if there ever was a case, and it ultimately comes down to power. They just absolutely, the liberals talk about civility. They talk about protecting, democracy. They have all these lofty goals, but at the end of the day, they want abortion and they want power, and nothing else really seems to matter for them by their own behavior.
Do you think it'll work? Do you think it will change the decision of the Supreme Court members currently?
I mean, if it, like last year, their intimidation campaign was, I think, much stronger than this year. And in fact, some lunatic tried to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh, and it failed, which I think still that story does not get as much play as it should. That is ridiculously scary.
It's a huge moment in American history, and no one acknowledges it.
Yeah, it's just like brush it under the table. The left doesn't want to talk about it. The media doesn't want to talk about it. Anytime the media wants to talk about violence and politics, they sort of just forget about that one, and they forget about the fact that some Bernie Sanders nutjob fan went with a gun to the softball practice for the Republicans and just started shooting them up and shot, Steve Scalise. And if Steve Scalise hadn't been a member of the House leadership, therefore having 2 security guards with them, it would have been a massacre that day. So, they just, we got to talk about tiki tortures down in Charlottesville, but we won't address it. The media only wants to portray one side of things. And if they continue to do this, increasingly the American people are just going to turn them off. I don't think but to get back to your question, I don't think the intimidation is going to work with the Supreme Court justices. I mean, if after the assassination attempt, after all these mobs coming outside their homes and death threats against their family, and like I said, the assassination attempt, and those 5 justices bravely still said, no, actually, sorry, but Roe is bad case law and it needs to go, and they did it. I don't think they're going to back down on, this Chevron case or the abortion pill case. No, that doesn't mean we still may not win the abortion pill case. That's not a slam dunk. I don't know how that case is going to come down, but I don't think it's going to be intimidation at the end of the day.
Yeah, and as far as the decisions go, I agree with Josh. They've shown by their behavior so far that the Supreme Court justices are not intimidated. They're not going to change as a result of this. But I think the more chilling aspect of this for me is just the sense that our constitutional order is out of whack. And we have a situation that was never anticipated by the founders, or they tried very hard to avoid a situation like the one that we're in now, where the court has this much power and Congress has delegated so much of its own role and authority and responsibility to unelected bureaucrats that the real threat to democracy, I would say to Senator Durbin, is not, whether Clarence Thomas took a flight on his billionaire friend's jet or not, or whether Justice Roberts has recused himself appropriately from X, Y, and Z cases. The real threat to democracy here is that Congress continues to abdicate its authority and its responsibilities to govern the country and to actually legislate specific laws that people can live by and that they know who is responsible for them so they can hold them accountable. And I don't know how we get back. I don't know how this plays out.
That's a good question, because it seems to me that Congress has kind of become a little bit of a circus, and whoever can generate the most attention and the most retweets is going to be able to raise enough money to keep their position. And I see it.
Is that a bad thing? I mean, you say that, and it's sort of understood that it's a bad thing. And I would say
it's embarrassing.
Well,
I would say it's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. And I guess my point would be what else do you expect them to do? Precisely because they've delegated all their authority to the judiciary and to the bureaucracy. There's nothing left for these lawmakers to really do except shout in front of the camera and raise money. And so if you're upset that your public officials are only doing that, then you need to tell them, listen, you need to exert your authority as lawmakers. You are the ones who are supposed to make the law. So get to it. Don't tell me about the filibuster. Don't tell me about that. Do whatever it takes. Start writing the laws. We need to fix these things. Why is the border the way it is? Why do we have this horrible patchwork of laws on immigration? Fix it.
Right.
Go do your job.
And support senators and congressmen who are trying to fix it. I just had a great interview with Senator Tuberville, so quick tease, go check that out. it's going to drop soon. But he's actually doing something. He has seen the way that the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security have been forcing unlimited abortion into our military, into all the branches. And so he said, this is not your job. You are breaking the law. Congress passes laws. If you want something changed, Congress should be passing a law about how the military, how taxpayer dollars go to the military for abortion. So what does he do?
Amen.
He says to them, he says, we are going to stop all of your nominations. We're going to stop all military nominations. No lieutenants are going to be promoted. No generals are going to be nominated and confirmed until you stop doing our job, which is Congress's job, which is to say how taxpayer dollars are to be spent in military defense, in healthcare, in their hospitals, which is not for abortions, according to the Hyde Amendment. So supporting senators who are trying their darndest to take back the reins and say, this is our job. So again, shout out to Tuberville.
It's almost amazing, too. What a great senator. And the thing is, he's a rookie. He just got there.
Yeah.
It's like, why aren't all 100 senators saying the same thing? Like, it is absolutely mind-boggling that that President Joe Biden and Secretary of Defense Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin are both claimed to be Catholic, and they're pushing abortion on our military. And if you want I think that's horrible. But it's like, do we want our servicemen and women to have to be flown across the country to perform an abortion? That's totally against the law. It's totally against the Hyde Amendment and everything else, so that you don't get to just do it on your own. So I can't believe, Senator, is it Tuberville? I never say it right.
It's Tuberville.
Tuberville. Yeah,
He confirmed it today
Yeah.
in person.
I can't even believe how just right from the gate, I tend to have a low expectation of our lawmakers in general, and he has extremely impressed me. I think he's awesome.
I don't think he's afraid of hard work because governing is hard work. I don't think Feinstein wants to do hard work, or Fetterman wants to do hard work, and I mean any number of Republican senators as well. Like, they just don't want to do the work. But Tuberville's there, like, he's like, roll up the sleeves.
Can I ask a really dumb question again? So I feel like whenever Congress people, they complain about the filibuster or things are too hard to overcome, or the opposite of that is they really pontificate hard on, this is my bill, I wanted to do it, but I don't have the votes either within my own caucus, or the other side won't have the votes, but I'm really trying to do this. How can you kind of tell what's the BS meter of, are they actually trying to do something? Are they actually trying to work with people? Are they drafting bills? Like from a observer standpoint, are they serious, or are they just fake? Is there a good way to tell?
It's mostly fake, because the thing is, anyone could put forward a proposal, and I'm like, I got a proposal, it's a great idea, but I can't get everyone else to sign off on it. They all agree to abide by these rules, and all of them are saying the same thing. So the point here is, our Senate doesn't have to work like this. They could all agree to move forward legislation, but they all realize it's better just to put because what is our federal government really? We're a life insurance agency with the military. We have Social Security, Medicare, and we have the military. That's the three biggest drivers. And it's like, why? And those are on autopilot for the most part. Like the military, like the big defense companies, it's not like they're going to be like, oh, are you going to pass a defense bill this year or not? I don't know. I mean, they're going to definitely make sure that thing gets passed. And Medicare and Social Security are on autopilot. The question is, all the other problems that are vexing, like, hey, let's actually fix the border. Hey, let's try to, make sure our infrastructure across the country isn't crumbling. All these things would require senators and members of Congress to work together and to try to come up with some solution. And it's just so much easier to sit there, like you say, and say, well, I had a bill to fix this. Well, writing a bill, anyone can write a bill. You've got to work together, coalition building here, and try to actually win support from people on the other side. And there are people who are willing to do that. I mean, I thought, J.D. Vance, again, everyone's like, oh, who's this guy? He's just written a book. He gets into the Senate, and then there's that big accident in Ohio, and he's working with he's practically a communist, the left-wing Democratic senator from Ohio.
Uh-huh.
So you got these two senators from Ohio. One's a conservative, one's a super liberal, and they're working together. Say, hey, let's make sure we don't have cleanup spills like this again. Like,
it was really refreshing.
Thank
Brian.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, refreshing. Can we have and that's why I think some people are misunderstanding like why a lot of Americans are responding to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I think one thing about him that's refreshing for a lot of people, and I'm not trying to get into this debate, on the Republican primary thing. I'm just talking about this in general. Like there was the hurricane. No, I don't care. There was a hurricane in Florida and it demolished this one bridge. And so he had his, Corps of Engineer guys or whatever it was, and they rebuilt like a temporary bridge within 3 days because there's an island where no one could get anything in unless you use helicopters, and that's going to be kind of hard. And they just put together this temporary bridge like in 3 days. It was supposed to take 5 or something like that, and it was done in like 48, 50 hours. It's like, gosh, it's
done.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, yeah.
What can happen? Like we have this government that we're so used to it being completely incompetent. Like, what has our federal government done since it landed on the moon? Like, not much. Like, come on, get it together, people.
Yeah, no, DeSantis' effectiveness is really refreshing. I think then the question people have is when he doesn't have both the Senate and the House, and basically he has a trifecta, so he's able to be very effective. So I think it goes back to the design of the federal government being inefficient, as I think a word that people would use is there's a lot of gridlock and things like that.
On purpose.
Design, by design.
Right.
However, what you can agree on, I think people would hope is important issues that we can get done. But actually, question.
I want it to be slow. I want it to be inefficient. I want it to take time, but I don't want it to never get anything done either. I mean, you got to get stuff done.
But theoretically, all right, we're going to have to say it. The Biden administration they've passed an infrastructure bill, and they've passed the American Rescue Plan, which I have my issues with both of those bills, but they got it done. Would you say that is like you're saying, you want people to be effective, you want people to pass things? What do you think about those two bills?
No, so those two.
I mean, go ahead, Erica.
Erica, go in.
So those two bills, the problem is, this is exactly what Josh was talking about. They delegate the actual execution of the law, the actual practical things that will affect you and I in our everyday lives. Like, can we buy a new gas stove? In California, probably not pretty soon. In New York, no. Can we buy incandescent light bulbs? No. Those kinds of things that actually affect American people on a day-to-day are not in those bills. They delegate all that kind of actual governing to these bureaucracies, to the EPA, to the FDA, to the, XYZ. And so the problem with those big bills is Joe Biden could say, oh, look, I got it done. I built enough consensus and we passed it. But again, it's not fixing that fundamental constitutional crisis of Congress isn't actually governing this country. These bureaucrats are governing the country from D.C. I don't know, Josh, you probably have more to say on it than that, but I just had to put that in there. The bills are ridiculous.
That's a talking point of Democrats, is that he's effective legislatively. Not that I agree with that, but that's what they would say.
Well, I mean, again, Donald Trump was able to get a tax cut and a corporate tax cut and a personal family tax cut. That was all to the good. I liked that. But again, we still have a problem where overall you're just not getting that much of, it's been how many years and we still have a wide open border. It's not just whether or not we build a wall per se. There's just a lot of problems there. And it's just not being addressed. It's not getting done.
Well, and the debt ceiling, the spending's still out of control. There's immigration, there's the debt ceiling, there's spending, there's taxation.
No, and it's like anytime Republicans, it seems like, the spending on entitlements is getting a little out of hand. Maybe we should trim it back a little bit. Then they accuse you of wanting to kill grandma. So, okay.
Not a good look.
I guess we're not going to have that debate.
Yeah, and I feel like it was similar with the American Rescue Plan, where it was like, oh, our self-manufactured crisis that we created by shutting everything down, we now need to give out more money to solve our self-manufactured crisis. And then while we give that money out, we're going to give a lot of that to our friends. And then also all the fraud involved with the PPP loans and everything. It wasn't well executed, but it was kind of done under duress of, oh, there's this crisis. People need money. We got to hand out checks. And who's going to vote against that type of thing? So I don't know. I guess to full it, because that is something I've heard. People are like, President Biden, if you can't get past him being 82 by the next time he runs, you could say, well, he was able to get a lot done. He's kind of this legislative
he got an infrastructure
savant.
bill passed, and then, within a year, what happened? He had several train derailments and a Secretary of Transportation that's phoning it in, doesn't care about what's going on.
Paternity leave, Pete.
Yeah.
People should rightfully be angry at the representatives that are not doing anything. And that's why sometimes it is kind of nice to have rookies who you elect, you get in there, fresh blood. I think that's why Trump was elected, is they're just tired of the people that are doing the same old, getting themselves elected, making a lot of money off of it, comfortable in their positions, but not actually
It's not even
doing
that they're
things to
making
help
money
people.
off of it. It's that, well, that's not the way things are done. You have to be totally stupid and not do anything. Like, wait, what? I don't get it.
Yeah, like to prepare for this segment on the Supreme Court, I went back and I watched some Senate Judiciary Committee hearings from the early 2000s up to 2011 with Scalia, because it's like a real palate cleanser for me to listen to him talk after all the garbage. But I pull up the first hearing, and it's like the same guys. It's Blumenthal's questioning Scalia and Durbin, and they have more hair. It's a little darker in shade, and I'm just like, whoa, they were there 20 years ago too. So, yeah, a little visceral reaction there.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of hard because, once someone's been in, then they're like, oh, well, I have all the experience and this person's new. They wouldn't know how things work. And I'm like, that's actually probably a good thing in a lot of cases. So anyway,
it's a good thing that they don't have experience. I want to make sure people understand what you mean. Yeah.
Right. It's a good thing that people don't, because the people with experience, it's the same reason why they move around cops. Like if you ever talk to a cop and they worked on like the drug unit, they only keep people in the drug unit for a couple of years, maybe less, and they switch them over to a different one, because the longer you're there, you kind of know, even if you aren't going to break the law, you know the ways to break the law, and say like that there's just a lot of temptations when there's tons of money and tons of drugs. So it's like, that's how I think about it. I'm like, we should not be handing these people, I'm all in favor of term limits personally, but that might be a subject for another episode. So we're going to move on now into the Bud Light boycott. So it turns out it was very successful. Bud Light sales have dropped 26% in the week of April 17, 11% the week prior, 8% down overall this year. Now, for people listening who see those numbers and they're like, that might not be super significant, Bud Light is $1 billion with a B dollar brand. They make millions upon millions and millions of dollars. So that 8% is extremely significant. And I think what made this one interesting for a lot of people was it felt like a win in a time where boycotts really have not worked. I think the most recent one that gets brought up is the NFL boycott after the whole Kaepernick taking the knee, which really didn't end up being successful. But this one was different.
Yeah, well,
we're talking about significant damage. So yeah, Josh, what's the reason to you? Why was this one so successful?
Well, I mean, boycotting the NFL is kind of tough because, what's your alternative? If you want to watch professional football, this is the only league. It's not like one team did something bad. It's like if you said, the only way that could have worked is like, don't buy any more San Francisco 49er jerseys. Don't go to any San Francisco games. That might have worked, but it's a little bit tougher. Now, when it comes to Bud Light, it was like easy. You have a lot of choices if you want to drink a cheap domestic beer that tastes like water. You don't have to buy Bud Light. You could get Coors Light. You could get Miller Light. Just pick one of these other ones. And some conservatives are like, well, wait a minute now. Coors is still pretty woke. So is Miller and all this stuff. Yes, we sort of understand most of these companies are pretty liberal and pretty woke and pretty stupid. But if you want to send a message loud and clear that Bud Light made a massive mistake by putting this man who pretends he's a little girl on a beer can, then don't buy that beer and make that beer can, that Bud Light, make it a pariah so that it'll send a message. And they'll notice the sales. And what happened? Like the first few days, sales are just plummeting really bad. And they took Bud Light took the ad executive that made the mistake and sent her to Siberia or something like that. And they tried to moving on. Here's a commercial with the American flag and the Clydesdales and la 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 la. We love America. Get it? And it totally reminded me of George W. Bush in 2004. Like, see, I love America, and God bless the American flag, and this is great, and just ignore the fact that I've made all these mistakes. Reelect me, and it's like, oh my gosh. And so, but it didn't work. Budweiser tried that, it didn't work. It's like, I don't give a crap about your horses. You're peddling trans crap, and we're not going to drink this anymore. We're going to pick something else. And some of the liberals are like, oh, you're so clever. Did you know that Anheuser-Busch sells like 40 brands of beer? Are you going to boycott them all? No, I'm not going to boycott them all. I'm going to boycott one. I'm going to boycott Bud Light. I'm going to tell everyone, don't drink Bud Light. So they get the message, don't put this weird dude on the can.
Right. I mean, Bud Light, they really, I would have loved to be in the marketing meetings where they pitched this, but they really made themselves the target of all the cheap, forgive me, horse piss that's out there. They really chose the prime example of everything that Red America hates about the trans ideology that has just been forced on them. Like, we woke up one morning and there were rainbow flags everywhere, and we had to put pronouns on our name tags in corporate America. Dylan Mulvaney is really the icon of this. So for Bud Light to choose them to meet their ESG score that they wanted to hit or something, that was like putting the target on their backs to be then, like you said, Josh, like everyone's woke. All of the beer companies, they all have an ESG score. They all are, being woke. But Bud Light really singled itself out and was like, hey, we're gonna put Dylan Mulvaney on our can. And that was, yeah.
It's smart choosing Bud Light, though. Because if you think about it, like, I don't know, Microsoft or something, if they do that, like, are we all going to be able to stop using Microsoft Word
Probably
or whatever?
Not. Right.
The genius of it is Bud Light is just, it's so easy to just not do. And their market share was so
easy to
large.
replace,
like,
right.
Yeah, their opportunity to make something heard was great. And I think I've also heard, too, the social contagion of this was just the best. Because anytime someone hadn't seen what happened and someone across the bar is drinking Bud Light, like, hey, like, you drink Bud Light, like, do you know what this means? Like, you can't do that. Like, go.
Now,
go to
interestingly enough, this is like a first successful boycott conservatives had. But what happened? Donald Trump Jr. was like, no, you can't do this. Anheuser-Busch is giving a lot of money to my dad. You shouldn't boycott Bud Light.
Oh, my
Thanks
gosh.
a lot, bro.
Yeah.
Just what an idiot.
Read the room, Donald.
And to Erica's point, it did come on all of a sudden, this whole trans movement. Like, all of a sudden, they're pushing this filth in libraries, and they're saying, we're going to let boys compete against girls in all these sports, and, the bathroom is no longer safe for your girls. We're going to go into whatever bathroom we want to. All this stuff just was thrust upon us. No one voted on this. It was just decided we're going to have all this filth in libraries, and we're going to open up the bathroom doors for whoever wants to go in there. It was not decided. There's no law. There was no debate. It just happened. It was descended on us. And so this was the first chance for the American people to go, oh, really? I'm going to pour the Bud Light out. I'm not buying this. I don't want it. Don't shove this down our throats. This is horrible. So I commend everyone who boycotted Bud Light over this. God bless you. And keep it up. And you know what? We're Catholic, so we're very forgiving people. So I have a proposal for Anheuser-Busch. This little patriotic American flag and all the Clydesdale ads, ain't going to do it. It's not going to be enough. What you could do is not just apologize, but why don't you give $1 million to the American Principles Project and say, and help them pass laws throughout the country that will protect minors from getting, gender mutilation surgeries. That would be a great way to apologize. Put your money where your mouth is. That'd be a great idea.
I might even drink a Bud Light for the first time in my life if that happened.
I still
if
won't.
they did that, I would buy a can of Bud Light. You bet.
I'd probably go Bud Heavy, but yeah, you never catch me drinking a Bud Light.
Yeah, I don't like
Definitely
light
not.
beer. I like the real stuff, but
You know what that reminds me of, Josh, too, when you're talking about Donald Trump Jr.? It reminds me of the DeSantis Disney thing. So Disney's suing back, and they're all mad because he's taking away special privileges. This was the greatest, not the greatest, this was the worst. The worst response I saw was that Nikki Haley, a presidential challenger, obviously acknowledging that DeSantis is a threat here, goes on TV and is like, you know what, Disney? If you want to come, you can come to South Carolina. We love businesses. We'd be happy to have
gosh.
you. And I was just
You
like,
missed the point, Nikki.
oh my gosh, like I just transported back to early 2000s. Like this is like old neocon stuff that who told her to say
No,
this?
she's stuck in
it was like,
2001.
Nikki loves business.
Yeah.
And loves bombing other countries. So the idea of like actually fighting to protect kids,
Yeah,
is completely.
come groom my kids in South
Here's
Carolina.
The thing. People need to remember what happened. Okay, lawmakers in Florida said we should not have gender ideology and radical sexual stuff taught to kindergartners, first and second and third graders. Let's pass a law protecting these children from kindergarten to third grade. Disney decides to, turn on its Death Star, right, and say,
Which it
we're
owns.
totally against this. And in Florida, Disney is humongous. They have the Disney World theme park. They employ tens of thousands of people. They're the big dog in Florida, and they decided they're going to put their corporate muscle and weight behind to oppose this bill because they wanted kindergartners, first, second, and third graders to be taught this radical sexual stuff. And so God bless the lawmakers in Florida and the leadership of Governor DeSantis to say, no way. We don't want this taught. And they smacked them down, and they won. And here's the important thing to remember. Nikki Haley opposed this. Donald Trump was attacking DeSantis over this. And the other candidate you mentioned earlier, how do you say his name?
Ramaswamy, yeah.
Yeah, he also
Ramaswamy.
attacked DeSantis. Like they all here's a major win for conservatives. And he's getting attacked on all sides because they all want to win the primary. And it's like, look, I don't care if you want to win the primary or not. Sure, go ahead, try to win, but don't attack a win. Give the guy the win. This is a good thing. Who wants this kind of smut taught to kindergartners, first, second, and third graders? And when a left-wing corporation attacks him for it, why are you siding with the corporation? Like, what? You're totally worthless. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, we got to break away from that.
Here's the thing. I'm going to tie this together. What Disney did and the Light Boycott, it's perfect because it shows what happened. Do you think corporations are going to be a little bit more cautious about putting Dylan Mulvaney on their stuff now that we had this clapback on the Bud Light? I think so. And actually, you know what? Since DeSantis pushed back against Disney, what has the Florida legislature done? They've passed additional laws protecting, pro-life laws protecting babies, the heartbeat bill. They did legislation on guns, all these other things against woke stuff in schools. They've reformed the college there, a new college in Florida. All these things that have been going on in Florida, and Disney's like, they've kept their mouth shut.
Little Mickey Mouse
they
whistle.
know the big mouse needs to shut up.
Yeah, I'd love to see us move away from just like the instant association with people that vote Republican and corporations, like they're somehow best friends. It's like if they're trying to groom your kids, they're not your friend.
Yeah,
why can't we?
That's not a
that
winning
seems like
strategy
sane
for Republicans
reaction.
anymore. It's not a winning
Right,
strategy.
it's like, no, you should act
Never
right
was.
because I pay your bills. You should act right
Nikki
because I pay
Haley
your
wants
bills.
to go back to the future. She wants to go get in her DeLorean and go back to 2003 when we can get back to bombing countries and praising corporations at every turn. Sorry, Nikki.
Yeah, I'm
Never Nikki,
I'm done
baby.
with that stuff. Yeah, definitely will not have. I won't have Disney Plus on my TV anytime soon. I'll tell you that, unless they donate to the American Principles Project. But I don't see that
Or
happening.
Catholic Vote,
Or Catholic Vote. We'll take that too. All right, Twilight Zone. Erica, what do you have
Here
this
we
week?
go. So I'm diving into the immigration border crisis here. Corinne Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, she was explaining how the White House plans to send 1,500 active duty troops to the border ahead of the expiration of Title 42, which is coming up this month. And so she's talking about this, and one of the reporters asked, well, if things are going so well, why are we sending 1,500? She's like, no, things are going really well at the border. Things are looking up. The Biden administration has been working hard, and illegal immigration has been reduced 90%. And this was hard to swallow when, statistics just published by U.S. Customs.
That sounds pretty good.
It sounds great, 90%,
90%?
because the most recent U.S. Customs and Border Protection report shows that in March this year, there were over 250,000 nationwide encounters across all the borders. The total number of encounters with illegal immigrants over the southern border this year is already at over 1.5 million, and we're slated to break records in terms of border crossings this year. So Peter Doocy from Fox News, I'm kind of down on Fox News right now, but I'll listen to Doocy any day talking to KJP. He asked her, where does this 90% figure, where's that number coming from? And she immediately responds back that, one, she doesn't like his dramatics, and two, she was in fact talking about the parolee program, which is a very specific program that was originally for Venezuelan immigrants wanting to come to this country. Biden expanded it to include Nicaragua, Haiti, and Cuba. It lets in about 30,000 people every month from these countries to be vetted and come into the country legally with work authorization. So when she was saying 90% illegal immigration is down 90%, she was actually just referring to this very specific program. But again, the Twilight Zone element here for me is that she did not couch it in those terms. When she was being asked originally, she dropped the 90% number in the context of questions about southern border crossings. So it was a total unmasking of just the total mendacity of the Biden, White House, and just saying things, putting out numbers. And if Peter Doocy had not pushed back on her with that 90% number, all the other listen to me, all the other White House correspondents would have been just like, oh my gosh, 90%, the Biden administration is making real changes at our border. And, they were all at their White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend, enjoying their caviar and their champagne, and with John Legend and his girlfriend and Joe Biden telling them how he loves them all because they're stenographers for his regime. And aren't they all awesome, patting each other on the back. So thank you, Doocy, for pushing back on KJP and asking her to explain her numbers, which actually had nothing to do with the conversation that was going on.
She would not survive a high school debate. Seriously, like
she's not
distinctly
interested,
remember.
Pogo. She's not interested in a
That's
debate.
True.
She doesn't care
right,
about
but
the fact.
In a high school debate, kids would do that. They would just bring up stats that were non sequiturs and then talk about it like it was a good thing and then not tell their source. Instantly, cross-examination comes up, say, okay, so where was that source from and what was it about? And people, and it's like, all right, instant slam dunk. That's high school debate, man. We're talking about representing the president of the United States. It's like, it's indicative of the system that's been created, to the pipeline of straight from the mouthpieces of the regime.
Well, they grill, the left, all these liberal reporters grill conservatives and their spokesmen all the time, but then they hand gloves with,
Kid gloves.
Yeah, kid gloves with Biden and his spokesman. It's just garbage.
Trump was pretty unbelievable. I went back and watched some Trump highlights, checked the tapes, and him to reporters was like nothing I've ever seen before.
It's very refreshing.
Whether you think it's good or bad or anything in between, I'm not even going to give my 2 cents on it. I'm just saying, go back, look up the highlight tape. It's unbelievable. The way that he was treated by reporters and the way he treated them back, it was just like he finally met them with equal disdain. Like you could tell how much they hated each other. And you're like, this is actually refreshing, and that at least there's honesty here. Because I feel like the one side of the interview has to put on the guise of civility, like, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you asked questions. He's like, no, I hate you, and you always lie about me. And he'd say it to their face. Like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Didn't Trump boycott the White House Correspondents' Dinner one year? And they were all like, he's not coming to dinner with us. Every year. He never went because it was just a joke.
Oh, man, he is.
Yeah,
it's the nerd prom. Yeah.
The winner this year, this will kill you, Josh. You might have seen this already, but the winner this year at the Correspondents' Dinner was the Aldo Beckman Awards. This was overall excellence in White House coverage, and this award comes from Biden to his favorite reporter. This year it was Matt Visor of the Washington Post, and they specifically awarded him for his coverage on how the president's brother and his Catholic faith influenced his strategic vision of America. I'm like, thanks, Matt Visor, how his Catholic faith influences.
Truth to power. Truth to
power, Matt. Way to be a great journalist and really tell us the truth. Yeah.
How President Biden selects his favorite ice cream. Film at 11.
Yes.
Give me a break. These guys are
That's
all
brave.
stenographers.
#brave reporting with Matt Visor.
The ice cream stuff is all funny too. But so for my Twilight Zone, I have a local legend here.
Ooh.
From the hometown, from Indiana. So there is a guy named Ryan Webb. I saw this over the weekend, and I've not had this hard of a laugh.
He's
in a
been
long
giggling
time.
in the office like every 5 minutes since he saw this. Yeah.
Yeah. I still bring it up if I need a little laugh. So Delaware County Council meeting in Indiana. So it's kind of by Muncie, to my understanding. He is a member of the council. And do your civic duty. I just voted. I don't know if it's too late for people, but I voted for my city council here. And it's important to be a part of local elections. So go do it. But anyway, so this guy was elected, and he he made a Facebook post. Sorry, I'm giggling already. He made a Facebook post saying that he is announcing that he is now a transgender, transracial woman. So a transgender Indian woman. I'll put up a picture of this guy on the YouTube.
So he's a white man. He's pretending he's a lesbian woman of color.
He looks like he's a white, I would say probably 40s, 50s man, married, kids. He makes a Facebook post.
He kind of looks like you, Josh.
Saying that, yeah, he's got some Josh to him. Let me find you the... Okay, so I mean, the language on this is just amazing. So
what's going on with this? I hadn't heard this story.
Okay, let me
break it down for us.
I'll break it down. The Facebook post. After much consideration, I have decided to come out and finally feel comfortable announcing my true, authentic self. It is with great relief that I announce to everyone that I identify as a woman and not just any woman, but as a woman of color as well. I guess this would make me gay/lesbian as well, since I am attracted to women. Now, the genius of this is, he said that he's not changing his pronouns. So he said, I still want you to refer to me as he, him. However, my internal identity now has changed, and he's still attracted to his wife. And so he said this, and of course that unleashed all the hounds of hell on him. So the best part about this story, in my opinion, was people came to protest this at the council meeting, and local news had to cover this as a serious story. And so they were like, Indiana councilman.
Wait. Time out.
Yeah.
Give me time out. So you're saying you believe this guy is doing it totally as a ruse, as a joke, but the media has to cover it like it's real because, he's making these claims that everyone makes, right?
Let me speak on behalf of Ryan. Ryan says he is dead serious, and he doesn't appreciate people questioning his identity because he wants the same respect that everyone else gets when they get to decide that they're two-spirit or whatever.
Yeah, so
he
back
said,
off,
I'm dead
Josh.
serious. So first off, back off, a little transphobic, but he has not admitted that this is a ruse at all. However, it seems to appear as though he's making a point. And so this transfer. Okay, so the people that came to the meeting,
why are
I'm
you
sorry,
laughing?
this is so funny.
Well,
because it's genius. Genius.
You're laughing because this dude is pulling a fast one on everyone, and
No.
he's not
Not according to
really.
him.
I know. You're laughing because you think this is all a joke on his part, right? I mean, that's why.
I'm gonna withhold my thoughts on his intentions.
He's got to. In order for this to play out, this lawmaker has to keep it going. He has to keep up, the wink, wink, and keep up the ruse. But you don't have to. You could just laugh at it. This is funny because you don't honestly think he's, a lesbian woman of color, right? You don't really think that he is.
Nope. Not my eyes don't tell me that. So people came to protest this.
Why would they protest? What were they protesting?
They seem a little hateful and not inclusive to me, but they're
No.
protesting him
Don't
because
play the lefty thing. I know you're doing that as a joke. No, seriously. What would be the reason they objected to it?
They object. Well, I'm going to read you the response. So Charlize Jameson is a man who is saying that he's a woman. Came and his first statement, if he were serious, I'd sing his praises, which to mention misgendering. Actually, no, he did say he wanted to go by that. But instead, I know better. We all do. I know better because of his history of making hateful anti-trans statements on social media and disrespecting one's pronouns. He has purposely and intentionally misgendered me, ridiculing my own gender identity. This is not something transgender people do to each other. His words not only embarrass himself, but the city council itself. So everyone, all the white liberal women showed up and this man to protest him on this. And my favorite part was the response here. So Charlize Jameson, do you think that you have the password to the forbidden world of coming out? When you decided to become a woman, did people tell you that it was unbecoming? Sorry, pal, but you don't get to be the decider of who is acceptable and who isn't. I was hoping that you and I could be friends now that we are both ladies who used to be men. I'll give you some more time. And he's not stepping down. He's staying on. He's not going anywhere. Matt Walsh has actually said he needs to go out to give him some support because it seems like he's getting some hate. But
see, I think this. The thing is, we have these crazy in our culture today. We have these crazy pieties with this LGBT sex cult that we have now. That's a part of this regime that's pushed on us all, and it's good to mock it. So if this guy's mocking it, all the more power to him, because it's hilarious and stupid, and I can't believe they keep pushing on us. Like, what was the person said like last week or 2 weeks ago? Like, puberty is oppression or something like that. It's like, hey, but I didn't enjoy puberty either. But
it's no walk in the park for the ladies
It's not the culture's fault. I mean, hey, God, I didn't really like when my voice would crack in 6th grade, but but it's a form of oppression. Like we're dealing with lunatics. We're dealing with with spoiled children who are screaming into the ether about how upset they are, and it's like you got to make fun of them a little bit. I don't like to ridicule or shame people. I don't, but we have to understand that people are mobilizing these kind of stories on the trans stuff in order to mutilate children. It's horrible.
Mhm.
So we
Right.
got to push back against it.
Exactly.
And sometimes in order for people to see the light, you need to be the court jester and show the absurdity of this stuff. I wish we could have a nice little, debate on logic, like you say, high school debate stuff, and say, well, this is why this theory, shows you're wrong. They don't care.
Right, exactly.
People are just lost.
It's why
they're
the Babylon Bee and like JP Sears and comedians that really are, it's sometimes just the best response to it. Because when you're dealing with the absurd, and this is the absurd, you're at a point in society where you can't sit down and be like, let's define our terms together, people. There's no term to define other than like...
We have a Supreme Court justice that was just confirmed last year. She couldn't even tell you what a woman was.
You're like, okay, now we just need to make fun of it. It's sort of sad. It's like the whole devolution of Saturday Night Live, because I think like Saturday Night Live for a while was able to provide real cultural commentary. But, because they made fun of everybody and just,
or you could say Jon Stewart, too.
Yeah, like exposing
he's
the
the one that
absurdity.
really killed
or
it.
Stephen Colbert before he went crazy. Like,
oh,
but then,
did you hear this, guys? No, wait,
Okay.
Erica, did you hear this, though?
Did I hear what?
So
This is
the
awesome.
Hollywood Writers Association is going on strike.
Writers' strike?
Uh-huh.
No.
So Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, they're not going to have any of these writers to to write these jokes anywhere. They might actually have to relearn how to be funny again.
Oh, that could
This
be
is
really
gonna be
good for
great.
them. This could be a really good midlife crisis moment for them.
Let me point at something and scream and mock it, and that would be funny.
I'll dance around dressed
you-
as a COVID vaccine.
Oh, gosh.
all
they've
those
already tried
comedians
that.
on late night TV are actually more like the caricature of Trump than they realize.
Yeah.
Did you see that Whoopi said something about that, too? She said,
no.
I hope you guys don't have too high of expectations, because now we're not going to be as slicked up or jazzed up as we usually are.
It's not a spontaneous conversation.
Oh, wait, that's not real?
Those 4 or 5 women are not just like chatting
not
it up.
scripted?
They're actually. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Shocking.
The scales are falling off. I can't believe it.
Anyway, Josh. Twilight Zone.
Well, my Twilight Zone isn't going to compare at all to anything that this. You guys have some great ones, but I find it really kind of funny. There's a new expose in the National Catholic Reporter. Now, the National Catholic Reporter is not the Register. This one's the communist one, the National Communist Reporter. And these guys, they're dissidents and everything, and they're pushing the trans stuff. Erica made a really good point about that in the latest Heroes and Zeros, where they were celebrating the state senator from Nebraska who was trying to stop everything in the legislature there. She was using the filibuster, right, and stopping the lawmakers in Nebraska from trying to save kids from gender mutilation. So, when they're done celebrating trans, now they're moving on to a new thing, and they're scolding the U.S. bishops, which, of course, this is the National Catholic Reporter. So they're used to scolding the bishops, right? They're used to scold how the bishops are obsessed with being pro-life. They can't be just pro-life. Abortion is just one issue. You can't, right? They say this all the time. Bishops, all they care about is abortion. And so they're scolding with a new report here that the U.S. bishops have, shockingly, none of these bishops across the country have divested their, funds from fossil fuels.
Oh, my gosh.
That was their article today. They were just outraged that they would still have, because, these dioceses, they have pension funds for their employees.
Right.
They have all this stuff, and they haven't properly scrubbed and cleaned their portfolios. You think, okay, so you're making sure that they're not supporting, pornography or abortion or something like that. No. Fossil fuels. That's what's corrupt for them. That's what's, and I like to think, does no one at the National Communist Reporter drive a car? It's all electric. Where do you think you plug that electric car into? It drives me crazy.
Ugh.
Yeah, this is what I don't like about our society today. It's like, I have my little puppy and I love my dog and this kind of stuff. And, but don't eat meat because, we shouldn't be cruel because we should be nice to animals. It's like, and there's this disparity. Like, they have this kind of concept of this, quaint, little thing, and they don't want anything to be done that's disruptive. It's like, ooh, cars are smelly. The exhaust, it's terrible. We should be clean. Let me plug in my, electric car, even though that was
the battery came from
kids
Zaire,
in South Africa were getting the materials to make the batteries. And of course, that, as you noted, Erica, was horrible. But then you plug it in, and it was so funny to watch. They had this little, this was in Lansing, Michigan. They had this little demonstration of all these electric cars, you know, and everyone's all excited. Oh, GM and all these electric cars. And the one person's like, yeah, so how do you get the energy for this? What'd you plug it into? Oh, we just plugged it in right here. Like, yeah, that's great. Where did the energy come from for this place? Oh, well, a coal plant.
Yeah.
They don't want to advertise that. So it's like, these are coal power cars. So literally, what if you came up with a car that you put coal into and it would burn it? People would freak out. How dare you? Well, that's what your electric car is doing half the time.
Oh, man.
It's running out energy you get from a coal plant.
We got to be careful when we use the 3 letters NCR because people do get confused. I've actually talked to people like, oh, no, I love the register. And they're like, no,
totally
we're not talking about that. But then the other thing, too, is
that's why it's better to say National Communist Reporter.
Or fish wrap.
Which might be helpful. Because they're more communist than they are Catholic, which is true.
But what cracks me up is like people will accuse us of, what are you talking about? That has nothing to do with politics. That has nothing to do with being Catholic. Like they just choose whatever they don't like. And they're like, well, this doesn't relate to anything that's in your name. And then you're like, then we have the NCR over here saying we're mad at the bishops for fossil fuels. Like, what does that have to do with anything, man?
Because their
like,
mutual fund might have some, Exxon Mobil stock. Like, I mean, I have a problem with Exxon Mobil being woke, but like because it
is what it is.
I'm not.
It's the Laudato
I'm not
Si
religiously
police.
opposed to gasoline. Like, what a bizarre thing.
Yeah. Jeez. Well, we got it done. We got this episode done. We had a little technical difficulties. Josh came in extra hot, fired up on some coffee. Erica as well. I'm proud of us. We did it. We have been overwhelmed by the support. The Exorcist interview did very, very well. We don't have a bonus for you yet, but we have one incoming. Senator Tuberville came on the LOOPcast, which was amazing. That will be coming out soon. Keep an eye out for it. If you want to help us out, and I've seen a ton of these lately, reviews. Go leave us a review, Apple Podcasts. It's the best way you can help the program right now. Spotify, you can leave us 5 stars. Josh even said you could even do 4 if you
we would
really,
take 4.
You know, we would take 4.
I'll allow
it. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're so blessed to have such a great community that we have here of people that are really trying to make change, get things done. And we just appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening. And God bless. We'll see you on the next one.